Shalom. I am Rabbi Dennis Sasso of Congregation Beth-El Zedek, and I am honored to welcome you to this year's Community Yom HaShoah observance. Let us begin with prayer. Today, we call to memory with grief and with love the millions of our brothers and sisters, Jews and members of many faiths, the young and the old, the strong and the weak, who died in the gas chambers, in the crematoria, and in the battlefield. We honor their resistance, their heroism, their spiritual courage. We honor also the liberators and the survivors, fewer and fewer with each passing year. Their example humbles us, and their valor ennobles us. We remember, but remembering is not enough. To remember is not just to learn from the past, but to live in the present and to help shape a future of blessing worth remembering by generations to come. We offer a prayer and we make a vow. At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are part of who we are, as we remember them. Amen. I have the pleasure of introducing this year's guest speaker. We welcome an inspirational message from David Estrin, the founder and CEO of Together We Remember, a nonprofit dedicated to empowering the next generation of leaders to make never again a reality. The grandson of 4 Holocaust survivors, David is on a mission to transform memory into action to end anti-Semitism and all forms of bigotry worldwide. Each April, Genocide Awareness Month, he leads a global campaign that unites students, educators, and leaders to counter violent hatred in their schools, communities, and on social media. David has shared his story and work nationwide, from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School to the United Nations. Welcome, David Estrin.
Greetings from the land of the Massachusetts and Pawtucket, otherwise known as Boston. My name is David Fox Estrin. I'm the founder and CEO of Together We Remember, a movement to empower the next generation of leaders to end identity-based violence by turning collective memory into collective action. I'm here with you today for 2 reasons. First off, all 4 of my grandparents survived the Holocaust, and that's why I'm alive today. And second, I'm here to inspire all of you in Indiana to believe that the next generation can and will make never again a reality once and for all. To begin, I invite you to travel back with me to winter of 1945. We might find my paternal grandparents, who were Jewish resistance fighters, partisans in Lithuania, taking cover behind a tree, exchanging gunfire with the Nazis. We might find my grandma, 13 years old, hiding in the Budapest ghetto, where she was ultimately saved by Raoul Wallenberg. We would find my grandfather in Mauthausen, all of his family members having been murdered at this point, who traveled to Mauthausen with him. He was alone, alone, alone in that hell of hell, as he described it. How I wish I could travel back to that moment and tell my grandparents that they would survive all of that, and over 70 years later, their grandson would be speaking to all of you on Yom HaShoah, alive and well with a thriving Jewish community in Indiana and all around the world. Now, fast forward, bringing me into the picture. This is me at my bar mitzvah, and as you can tell, things were going quite well. But just a few months later, I found myself in the gates of a concentration camp for the very first time, Mauthausen, with my grandfather. I took this photo on the left, a reenactment of the liberation between the soldiers of the U.S. Army, Patton's Third Army, and my grandpa walking in through the gates with all the other survivors. And the photo on the right is a photo of what a child looks like whose world has been shattered and put back together all at the same time, trying to make sense of what he had witnessed. I look back on that day as the day that I woke up as a social justice advocate, and I began to understand the power of collective memory to inspire collective action, especially among young people. Now, this is a registry of prisoners at Mauthausen, and I found this after my grandfather passed away and we were going through documents that he had preserved. And here's the name of my great-grandfather, Jew number 67232. Like many other names on this list, you can see that the name has been handwritten and crossed out, and obviously this means that he was killed. Now here's the name of my grandfather, Jew number 67245, Jimmy Lickman, and he survived. He is just one of several names on this list. And I think what had to go right for him to survive. And I wonder how many names are on lists like this from the past being added to lists like this in the present around the world, and how many more names will be added to lists like this in the future. This is what sparked my interest in the meaning of a name and what ultimately led to the founding of Together We Remember. So when my grandpa passed away, I was a junior at Duke University, and I asked myself, how could I honor his legacy in a way that would be relevant, meaningful, and most importantly, actionable to my school community and to future generations? At the time, Israel and Gaza were at war, tension was high between Jews and Muslims on my campus, and a Muslim faith leader named Imam Abdullah Antepli asked if I had any ideas to bring us together. So I did what I learned in school back in Boca Raton, Florida, and we organized a name reading vigil. And the vigil in the first year was 12 hours, and the second year it was 24 hours. And the thing that was innovative about this program is that we didn't just read the names of victims of the Holocaust, we read the names of victims of genocides all throughout history. And this got people beyond the Jewish community to show up with enthusiasm. And we were using restorative principles. And it also created so much space for other programs that year and in following years, for testimony, lectures, dialogues, pledges, you name it, we were doing it to unite our community as one. So this sparked the vision for Together We Remember, and we wondered, how could we address the key issue of our time, which was that memory could be fading when the lessons of the past may matter most. And this is what we called our Le Dorvador moment. I had lived through it with my grandfather, and I know many of you have experienced it as well. And this is what really is the bedrock of what inspired our movement for Together We Remember. We wondered, could we organize vigils like we organized at Duke all around the world with different communities on the front lines who've experienced identity-based violence? And if we could remember together, then we could take action together to counter anti-Semitism and other forms of hatred. And our moonshot goal is what we call Mission 2048, which is the 100-year anniversary of the UN Genocide Convention, established through the heroic activism of Raphael Lemkin, a Polish Jewish attorney who lost most of his family in the Holocaust. And our moonshot goal is that genocide, mass atrocities, and identity-based violence will be history by the year 2048. That is about 28 years from now, and we want to spark the TWR flame all around the world. And how will we know if we're successful? Well, as long as the list of victims grows each year, we know we have work to do. That is how we are going to hold ourselves accountable. But I'm so proud to share that this work is already launched, and we've organized well over 100 vigil programs all around the world, including multiple in Indiana, and that has been so inspiring for all of us. Just to give you a sense of what's happened in Baltimore, in Charleston, in Charlottesville, in Parkland, and in Pittsburgh as well, communities that have experienced identity-based violence of late, we have sparked the TWR flame, and in so many other parts of the world. In Pittsburgh, shortly after the shooting that happened there, we were welcomed into the community in partnership with the Holocaust Center of Pittsburgh to share our methodology for how we turn remembrance into action. And Twitter, a social media company, gave us $100,000 of in-kind advertising funding to boost our messaging on social media, because we can deplatform all the haters and the Holocaust deniers, but then we're left with almost nothing on social media, right? So we gotta fill it with positive content, a wave of stuff that is inspiring. And so we built a virtual memorial and invited people to share their pledge for who, what, why, and how they pledge to remember, and raised awareness that April is Genocide Awareness Month. And I think many of you know and recognize the wonderful woman on the bottom right, Eva Kor, Holocaust survivor in blessed memory, whose story that we shared all around the world. And as a result of all of this work, we were invited to the United Nations to share our story for how we are empowering young people to make a difference in a really inspiring way from a human rights perspective. And now I want to zoom in a little bit on our core values, because I think these are things that you can apply in your community as we speak right here and right now. So at the core of all of our programs are 4 core values. Number 1, inclusion. And so we invite you to consider, what does never again mean, not just to the Jewish community, but to other communities that have been impacted by identity-based violence, right? We operate by the golden rule of allyship, which is that we want to advocate for others as we want them to advocate for us. And the next value is localization. So what does never again mean in our own backyards? What is the legacy of genocide and atrocity on our own land? Are we on indigenous land? Have there been lynchings and racial terror massacres in our community, Japanese internment camps? There's so much that we have to face in our own local context here in the United States, but that allows us to foster allyship with those communities on the front lines whose lives are at risk and get them to advocate in solidarity with us to fight anti-Semitism. Also, youth leadership. So we believe young people are not just students of history, but they are shapers of history. So time and again, we know that they are on the front lines of the movement, and we want to put them front and center because they are ready for this moment. And finally, repetition. No single campaign, no single program is going to end genocide and anti-Semitism in our lifetime. We have to show up again and again, which is why Genocide Awareness Month is so important as a ritual, Yom HaShoah, and other days of remembrance, as well as what we do all around the year. Now, as a result of the pandemic, we had a couple of organizations that were coming together to collaborate, but because of the pandemic, it supercharged our work all around the world, and we built what we call the Together We Remember Coalition, and we are proud that the Indianapolis JCRC is one of our core and founding members of the coalition, along with 16 other organizations from around the world. These are Holocaust, genocide, and human rights institutions that are hubs for activism and engagement in our communities. And the way that we responded to the pandemic was so inspiring. We organized 30 days to unite the fight against hate around the world last April, just days after the pandemic had started. And we created a virtual memorial on our website. We had a full calendar of events crowdsourced and live streamed on the web, a virtual resource hub, and we also organized and launched our Youth Action Network. So we combined all of the youth power of our institutions and created this 26-student Youth Action Fellowship program that involves so much engagement, education, awareness, and activism, and virtual projects. And 4 of the students in our founding cohort are actually from Indiana, and so we're so proud of that, and we thank our hosts today who made that possible. And with our students and with our coalition, we've launched and taken Genocide Awareness Month to the next level. This year, it is 30 days of remembrance, learning, and activism to end identity-based violence, presented by the Together We Remember coalition. Last year, like I said, it was so incredible and inspiring in just days what we pulled off, and we are doing it again, even better, brighter, and more powerful. And last year, in just about 2 weeks, we organized a 24-hour virtual global vigil to end the month, showing the power of our movement, and we are doing it again on April 29th. Just to give you a little taste of what we did 24 distinct 1-hour events that traveled all the way from Hong Kong to South Africa to Poland and ultimately ended in Los Angeles. One of those hours was organized by the wonderful Amber Mays with the JCRC, which shined a light on issues and violence in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and we look forward to collaborating this year, once again, showing how Indiana is doing amazing work on behalf of communities in your backyard and around the world. We also had some cool influencers and celebrities involved with our vigil. We had Ambassador Samantha Power, Josh Gad, the actor and comedian, and then also Jesse Eisenberg, who had released an incredible new film about Marcel Marceau, a Jewish mime who saved a bunch of children during the Holocaust. And all of this ultimately it comes down to me believing truly and hopefully inspiring you to believe that we are all ready for our Lador Vador moment. And now is the time for all of us to rise to it, to collaborate across generations, across borders, across lines of difference. And so I invite you to join us this year for our global Genocide Awareness Month campaign. Activate locally and globally by visiting togetherweremember.org and following us on Instagram and on Twitter using our handle @TogetherWeRemember. We're also on Facebook. The JCRC will also be sharing a bunch of our projects and opportunities for action. And we hope you'll join us at the Global Vigil on April 29th. We have so much work to do, but throughout history, we know in the darkest moments, the brightest beacons of humanity always shine through. That's why I'm alive. That's why I'm here today. And I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to share our story with all of you and to now have you all as part of the we in Together We Remember. I hope you have a wonderful day. And it's been a privilege to be with you on this Yom HaShoah. Thank you.
Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer leolam, achol v'hayam, rishu shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam, ha'chol ve'hayam, rishu shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam. Eli, Eli, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart.
Creator of all, source and shelter, grant a perfect rest under your tabernacle of peace to those who perished in the Holocaust. Our fathers and mothers, our sisters and brothers, our rabbis and teachers, our neighbors and children, the named and the unnamed, whose lives were cut off by brutal, vicious, cunning, and calculated violence. May they find peace in the world to come. Remember the survivors who have since passed away and the virtues of our people who've died at the hand of malice in every generation.
We remember the work of their hands and the messages of their hearts. Bless the defenders of Israel with safety and strength, and the righteous of all nations who provide protection, shelter, and comfort to the Jewish people. Let their deeds be a source of favor in heaven and healing on earth. Put an end to anger and hatred, and lead us to a time when no one will suffer at the hands of another, speedily in our days. May the memories of all who face these horrors be sanctified with joy and love. And may their souls be bound up in the bond of life and a living blessing in our midst.
Ani mamin, ani mamin, ani mamin, b'emunah shelema, b'viat HaMashiach, b'viat אני מאמין ויפעל בי שיתמלא עם כל זה אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין, אני מאמין בנשימה בביאת המשיח, בביאת המשיח אני מאמין.
Never Shall I Forget by Elie Wiesel. Never shall I forget that first night in the camps that turned my life into one long night, 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget that smoke. Never shall I forget the small faces of the children whose bodies I saw transformed into smoke under a silent sky. Never shall I forget those flames that consumed my faith forever. Never shall I forget the nocturnal silence that deprived me for all eternity of the desire to live. Never shall I forget those moments that murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to ashes. Never shall I forget those things, even were I condemned to live as long as God himself. Never. And now, through the lighting of candles, we honor and commit to memory those whose voices were silenced during the Holocaust.
I'm Frank Grunwald, and a Holocaust survivor. It's been approximately 80 years since the Holocaust began, but I still perceive it as a contemporary event, and that's because most survivors carry their memories of the Holocaust with them into the present. It is my hope that the Holocaust will always be remembered, that we will continue to probe and try to understand its causes, and thus ensure that history will not repeat itself. I light this candle in memory of my family members and the 1.5 million children that also perished under the Nazi occupation of Europe.
We light a candle in memory of those whose own family members are not physically present to light a candle themselves.
We light this candle in memory of the 1,600,000 children whose hopes, dreams, and lives were extinguished before they ever started.
We light a candle in memory of the others who were also singled out for destruction by the Nazis, the disabled, the LGBTQ+, the Roma, and so many more who were deemed undesirable.
We light a candle for the righteous among the nations, who stood as a beacon of light amidst the war and darkness, and risked their lives for their fellow human beings.
We light a candle for those who live even now under the yoke of oppression in places where the threat of genocide is real and ever present.
We light these candles to ensure future generations remember those who died in the Shoah.
Shochein bamrovim Hametzemen uchan echonlawa Aval kanefia shechinawa במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מאירים ומסהירים את נשמות אחינו ואחיותינו, אנשים, נשים, זקנים וטף, שנהרגו ושנשרפו, שנשמדו ושנקברו חיים, אשר מסרו נפשותיהם לקידוש השם, שהלכו לעולמם. בעבור שאנו מתפללים בעד הזכרת נשמתם בגן עדן תהיה מנוחתם. אבנו, אבנו, בעל הרחמים, אז תראה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתם. אדוני נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על פזורים משכבותיהם, ונאמר
My tears are crystal and broken glass. They sparkle, they cut, they heal, they wound. They are daybreak and midnight, hymn and dirge, joyous celebration and lonely mourning. My tears catch your divine light, prisms casting colors across my days and on my hands. I pray to hold them gently, with dignity, with honor. I am one of your children, one of those you love, comforted knowing that I, too, am one for whom you cry tears of crystal, tears of broken glass.
We join together now in the words of Mourner's Kaddish. We invite you to rise as you're comfortable doing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. B'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'yizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yithalal, shemei dekutsha brichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushvachata v'nechemata, da'amiran bialma v'imru amen. Yehe shlomo rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. I'm Rabbi Brett Critchever from the Indianapolis Hebrew congregation, and on behalf of all those who worked hard to put this program together, I thank you for joining us today. It is a privilege for us to remember those from our past who show us the way forward into a new future. And of course, these days remind us of the importance not only of remembering the tragedies of history, but also assuring this world that they will never happen again in any place. That is our responsibility. That is what we dedicate ourselves to on this Yom HaShoah. We have lived in numberless towns and villages, and in too many of them we have endured cruel suffering. Some we have forgotten, others are sealed with our memory, a wound that does not heal. 100 generations of victims and martyrs, and still their blood cries from the earth. What can we say? What can we do? How to bear the unbearable or accept what life has brought to our people? All who are born must die, but how shall we compare the slow passage of time with the callous slaughter of the innocent cut off before their time? They lived with faith, not all but many, and surely many died with faith in God, in life, in the goodness that even flames cannot destroy. May we find a way to the strength of that faith, that trust, that sure sense of life and soul which endure beyond this body's death. They have left their lives to us. They let 1,000,000 prayers rise whenever Jews worship. Let 1,000,000 candles glow against the darkness of those unfinished lives. Amen.